Welcome back. Let's talk about the effects of the microbiota. I'm not going to tell you everything it can do to us or for us because I don't know everything and because it wouldn't be very exciting to do that. What I do want to tell you about is two of the effects we know the best, and I want you to understand them a little bit and know some examples. So I want you to have two clear ideas of things that are happening based on your microbiota. So let's get into it. The first of the two things I'll tell you about is colonization resistance. This is when your microbiota sort of claim their territory and don't let other microbes grow there. They don't let other microbes colonize your body. This has sometimes been called the barrier effect, that they act as kind of a shield against pathogens, where the pathogens can't grow in you because the microbiota is already there. That's the idea. I want to point out that colonization might remind you of the word colony relating to a petri dish, but they're not related at all. When we say colonize, that has nothing to do with a petri dish. Colony on a petri dish is not a very good word for a pile of microbes you can see. We should just call it a pile. But we don't. We call it a colony. But it's unfortunate when people get that confused with colonizing a new environment. Growing and spreading in a new environment. So we do say colonized when we're talking about the microbiota because they have colonized your body and they prevent other microbes from colonizing your body, and that is colonization resistance, and that is a big benefit you get from your microbiota. The other big benefit is they help us harvest energy from undigested foods. And this is a more complicated idea, and I will walk you through one big way this works. So I guess first I've decided to talk about energy harvest via volatile fatty acids. So there are two ideas there. One is energy harvest, so they are helping us get more energy out of our food. And two is volatile fatty acids. That's the form that we are going to absorb, that they are going to make. So the volatile fatty acids, or VFAs, are small molecules that evaporate at room temperature. So they're called volatile because that's what volatile means. And they're fatty acids because they have carbon chains and then a carboxylic acid. So if you're an organic chemistry nerd, they are things like acetic acid or acetate, propionic acid or propionate, and butyric acid or butyrate. I will mostly talk about butyric acid or butyrate. And a lot of bacteria make these volatile fatty acids as waste products of their energy metabolism. So they'll break down sugars and release volatile fatty acids as their waste product. That is a common thing throughout nature. And the two big ones are butyric acid and propionic acid. Acetic acid also happens. In our colons, we find butyric acid and propionic acid, less so acetic acid. Butyric acid smells like vomit, and propionic acid is what's in Swiss cheese. So we get production of volatile fatty acids when there are three conditions met in our colons. So when three things are true, we will get production of fatty acids there. So number one, a person has to eat indigestible carbohydrates that will pass all the way through the digestive system without being digested or absorbed. And they have to reach the colon. And when they reach the colon, now they are available for the bacteria to break them down. Number two, that was condition number one. Number two is the bacteria have to be there, and they are obligate anaerobes, typically. They are the ones that do this. Lots of different obligate anaerobes break down carbohydrates from food if those carbohydrates make it to the colon. And the third condition is there has to be a lack of oxygen so that the obligate anaerobes can grow. And what we're going to see is that colonocytes enforce this. They use oxygen before it can get to the colon. And it might be good to pause the video and remind yourself, where do you find colonocytes? What are they? To me, they're analogous to enterocytes. Colonocytes are the epithelial cells that line the colon, and they absorb water and ions from the developing fecal mass. And they are next to the goblet cells in the colon. Enterocytes in the small intestine are the ones that absorb nutrients from food. So these again are the three conditions. So why do we care about this? We care about it because of a few different ideas. Number one is that those same colonocytes in our colon that use the oxygen and protect anaerobes from that oxygen, some of those colonocytes, well, all of them, preferentially use volatile fatty acids, specifically butyric acid, over glucose. So if you give them both butyric acid and glucose, they will use the butyric acid first. That is their preferred source of carbon and energy. They prefer it about 20-fold over glucose. So clearly they expect to get it. Second, we know that volatile fatty acids, if they're produced in the colon, they diffuse out and into our bloodstream, and they circulate in our bloodstream, and they go to every tissue in our bloodstream, and our brain senses them. They change the way our neurons act. We know our bodies respond to them in a lot of different ways, most of which are positive. Let's see. Yeah, these are a few things from a paper I read a while ago about why volatile fatty acids are good for us, and they regulate our absorption of things like sodium and water, and also minerals, and they can also help just be poisonous to pathogens, but they're good for the bacteria that make them. This slide is from when I was trying to distill this. I was trying to summarize what volatile fatty acids do in our bodies, but I cannot summarize it. There are so many different things we know, so many different effects volatile fatty acids have on neurons that I could not wrap my head around it. The take-home point for me is that they have a lot of effects on us, and we are adapted to expect them. Our colonocytes want them as their energy source. So our bodies might be looking for these volatile fatty acids. So before we move on to the next one, I would pause the video and go back and learn those three conditions. What are those three conditions we need before we get volatile fatty acids? Because that might affect some things you do. I mean, the first condition is that you have to eat things that have carbohydrates that will reach the colon. And if you're eating ramen and like Rice Krispies and like bread, a lot of those carbohydrates are not reaching the colon. You'd have to be eating whole oats. You'd have to be eating onions. You'd have to be eating, some whole grains and indigestible fiber, a lot of fiber, to have it actually reach the colon. And then you need to have the bacteria there. You need to have the anaerobes. Well, remember what I said about how many generations those bacteria are in us and on us? If we don't feed them, they go extinct and they might not come back. So it is entirely possible that a person could say, oops, I've been eating ramen all the time. Now I want a good healthy microbiota. I'm going to start eating kale and onions and whole oats. But there might not be anything in their colon that can digest those things. I mean, in that situation, the best thing they can do is keep eating those things and eventually hope that they will accidentally ingest some bacteria that will make it to the colon and start digesting those things and making volatile fatty acids. Okay, and then colonization resistance is the other major effect of the microbiota. Again, colonization resistance is when the microbiota prevents new microbes from growing on us and in us. And I mentioned it, called the barrier effect, because it protects us from pathogens. And the example I want to give you is C. diff, Clostridioides difficile. This is a pathogen that started causing problems for people in the 1970s, but much more so in the 90s. And it would cause colitis in people after they took broad spectrum antibiotics. So they would take a broad spectrum antibiotics, which would wreck their microbiota, kill a lot of cells, but also kill certain groups of cells and not others, to really make an imbalance in their microbiota. And then Clostridioides difficile could start growing where it couldn't grow before. And what that means is that before there had been colonization resistance against it. There had been a barrier effect, and the antibiotics robbed the microbiota of their ability to repel Clostridioides difficile. So that is the thing to think about with antibiotic therapy. And certainly people who prescribe antibiotics are aware of this, because a very hard thing to do is get rid of Clostridioides difficile once it's there. And right, a point I make is that there's a balance of microbiota. We call it a community structure, where we have certain numbers of one, certain numbers of a different one, certain numbers of a different one. Some of them have to be abundant, some of them have to be rare in the right pattern. But antibiotics, especially broad spectrum ones, kill certain groups and completely change that balance. So I wanted to get into dysbiosis right away, but I think I'd better stop this video and give you a break before we get into dysbiosis. So I hope you'll go back and think about energy harvest and how it works through volatile fatty acids. And I hope you will think about colonization resistance and Clostridioides difficile. In the next video, I'll give you a better way to think about C. diff, and that'll be fun. I'll see you there.